Hello engineers! Welcome sa ating lecture video about construction, occupational safety, and health. So for this topic, may dalawang set tayo. So this is the first set, and for this first set, may 60 items tayo. So let's get it started. So number one, in demolition safety, this control is characterized by ensuring separation between the public and the demolition activities. So bago natin ito masagutan yung question number one, dapat natin maintindihan ano ba yung mga types of control. So here are the hierarchy of controls. So number one, elimination. Bali, ito yung nasa top, meaning this is the safest way of eliminating or mitigating hazards because ang ginagawa sa elimination is eliminate the hazard at the source. So, ito yung pinaka-safe na control, di ba? Kasi you're totally eliminating the hazard. Number two, substitution. This is to provide an alternative that is capable of performing the same task and is safer to use. So, substitution meaning you're replacing the activity or the environment with something safer. Engineering control naman, provide or construct physical barrier or guard. So parang you're adding an engineering safety. Sa administrative naman, develop policies, procedures, practices, and guidelines. So dito more on the people side. So you're creating rules parang ganun for the people to make the environment safer. And lastly, yung last resort for control is the PPE. This is the personal equipment designed to protect the individual from the hazard. So dito yung sinabi, best practice is substitution. And why not elimination, di ba? Elimination is at the top, but why is substitution the best practice? Kasi at the work site, at the actual work site sa construction, mahirap kasing i-eliminate lang yung hazard. So that's why substitution becomes the best practice because it's really easier for us engineers to substitute activities or work or the setup ng workplace to make it safer. So that's why it becomes the best practice. And dito naman for this arrow, this green arrow, for substitution and engineering control, one thing they have in common is that they both require a physical change to the workplace, material, or machines. Dito naman sa administrative and sa PPE, this is more on changes for the people. So sa administrative, require worker or employer to do something. Dito naman sa PPE, requires worker to wear something. Okay, so again, this is the hierarchy of controls: elimination, substitution, engineering control, administrative control, and then PPE. So with this, kaya na nating sagutan ang question number one. Number one, in demolition safety, this control is characterized by ensuring separation between the public and the demolition activities. So, bali, sineseparate mo yung people, yung public, from the demolition activity, which is the hazard. So, there is a elimination of the hazard. You're eliminating the demolition activities from the public. So, the answer is elimination. Number two, which control is demonstrated by the use of power shears in place of grinding or oxyacetylene cutting. So in place of, di ba, may replacement, or in other words, there is a substitution. Number three, installation of scaffolds, platforms, guardrails, shoring, and bracing. So you're adding something. You're adding engineering materials, di ba? Engineering work tong mga scaffolds, platforms, guardrails, shoring, and bracing. So, in other words, the answer is easily engineering control. For number four, this type of risk control includes limiting the amount of time a person is exposed to a particular hazard, implementing safe working procedures for all hazardous tasks, and training all personnel. So dito, you're making the environment safer by parang teaching the people, di ba? So this is an administrative control. Number five naman, primary cause of accident that is characterized by the human action that departs from a standard. So dito pa lang malaman natin yung answer. Kasi departs from a standard, meaning it's unsafe kasi it departed from the standard. Tapos human action. So, unsafe departs from the standard, tapos human action. So, unsafe act. Letter A. So, number 6, the physical or chemical property of a material, machine, or the environment which could result in injury. So, kanina, it was about human action. Ngayon naman, it's about materials, machines, and the environment. So, this is an unsafe condition. For number 7, a risk associated with poorly guarded or dangerous equipment and machinery that may cause injury. So in short, a risk that may cause injury. So what is the risk that may cause injury? This is safety hazard. So next naman, number 8, ano tong risk that may cause illness or disease? So this is the health hazard. Number 9, an engineering control or PPE set that protect you after you fall, which is characterized by stopping the fall before you hit the surface. So itong system na to, it prevents you from actually falling down to the ground. So kapag mahulog ka na, ito yung sasalo sa'yo before you fall to the ground. So what type of system is this? This is the fall arrest system. So examples of fall arrest system are net, mesh, and body harness. So number 10, an engineering control or set of PPEs prevent you from falling like guardrails, covers, and restraints. So ano bang tawag sa system na to, yung mga guardrails, covers, and restraints? This is the fall protection system. So kanina, fall arrest system, yung sasalo sa'yo before kang mahulog. Ito naman, it prevents you from falling, which are itong mga guardrails or protective barriers. This is the fall protection system. Number 11, a formal process to identify the dangers of specific job tasks in order to reduce the risk of injury to workers. So dito pa lang, pagbasa natin sa statement na to, specific job tasks. Identify the dangers of specific job tasks. So the answer for that is job hazard analysis. Kasi you're analyzing a specific job task. Meanwhile, dito naman sa number 12, this is somehow similar sa number 11. So the question is a formal process to identify potential hazards related to an activity or operation, analyze the level of risk associated with those hazards, and propose controls to reduce the level of risk. So the answer for number 12 is HIRAC. So the meaning of HIRAC is hazard identification, risk assessment, and control. So itong naka-orange, naka-highlight sa number 12, this is exactly the definition of HIRAC. So it identifies hazards, analyzes the risk, and then proposes controls. So since sinabi ko yung 11 and 12 is somehow similar, tignan natin yung main difference ng job hazard analysis and yung HIRAC. So for job hazard analysis, it has a much narrower scope as it involves only job-specific risk. So as sinabi ko kanina, kapag job-specific na risk, this is a job hazard analysis. Yung HIRAC naman gives a big picture view of all operational risks, including environmental hazards, stormwater and waste management, equipment maintenance, and more. So si HIRAC is more of the general, yung buong work site yung ina-analyze mo in regards to its operational risk. So that is the main difference ng dalawa. Okay, let's continue. Number 13, this is the vertical member of shoring and timbering. So yan, vertical member of shoring and timbering. So from this image, ano ba yung vertical? Di ba? Vertical. So this is the vertical. The vertical is the sheathing. Okay? Vertical member is sheathing. So the answer is sheathing. Number 14 naman, longitudinal member of shoring and timbering. So kanina is the vertical. Ngayon, longitudinal. So ano ba yung longitudinal member? This is the wales. Wales. So, a tip para mas madaling ma-memorize yung whales, yung longitudinal. Di ba whale is isang type of isda na super laki, super long, di ba? So, longitudinal members, longitudinal member, whales. Di ba? Whales are long. So, ganun. Okay, next is number 14. Oh, ito. Longitudinal members are whales. Number 15, transverse member naman of shoring and timbering. Ano yung transverse member? This is the strut, okay? So it's the strut, yung transverse. Transverse, strut. Number 16, a general term used to describe a temporary structure of timber or metalwork with a platform used in the construction. So kapag general term, from the choices itself, ano ba yung general term na ginamit dito? It's the scaffolds. Okay? So general term used to describe a temporary structure of timber or metal work with a platform used to support workers, it's the scaffolds. So this is an image of scaffolds. Next, a scaffold hanging by means of ropes or chains capable of being lowered or raised by winch, pulley, and etc. So kapag may ropes or chains, this is medyo obvious na. These are the suspended scaffold. Okay? So ito naman yung image of the types of suspended scaffolds. So ito, lahat may ropes and chains. Number 18, a platform supported by a single row of uprights or standards. So single row, may clue na tayo, single row. So meaning, it's the single scaffold. So ano bang ibig sabihin ng single row of uprights? So this is the image. Itong mga vertical members, these are the uprights. So ito, single row lang, isang row lang yung mga vertical members niya. Meanwhile, sa number 19, a platform supported on 2 rows of uprights. So dalawang rows na, kanina 1 row lang. So obviously the answer is double scaffold. So yung image naman for a double scaffold is ito. Dalawang rows na, di ba? May vertical dito, tapos may isang row pa ng vertical members dito. So dalawang rows of vertical members. Number 20, it is a vertical member of scaffold transmitting the load to the ground or to a base plate. So vertical member of scaffold, kakasabi ko lang, these are the standard or upright. So ito yung image, the vertical member of a scaffold is called a standard or upright. Next, a scaffold bracing which extends horizontally from standard to standard, forming right angles with the potlugs. So, di ba standard yung vertical? Ano da yung nasa horizontal niya, tapos naka-right angle with the potlugs. So this is the ledger or stringer. So from the image, ito yung ledger or stringer. Itong from one vertical to another vertical, ito yung nasa horizontal niya. Okay? So next, a scaffold member spanning between a ledger and a building wall or between 2 ledgers upon which the platform rests. So ito yung naka 90 degrees from the ledger, which is the potlugs or bearer. So from the image, ito yung potlug or bearer. Okay? Next, hold standards or uprights in a fixed position to prevent any lateral movement. So ito yung nag-prevent sa mga any lateral movement. So this is the brace. Okay, so the brace is the diagonal member. Number 24, what scaffolding materials shall be used at heights over 20 meters? So di ba medyo mahaba, mataas na yung over 20 meters. So from the choices, medyo obvious na ano yung pinakamalakas. So it is a structural metal. So let's check at the provision. So at heights over 20 meters, structural metals should be used. Okay? So kapag over 20 meters high na, use structural metal. Number 25. In the OSH standard, workrooms shall be at least how many meters in height from the floor to the ceiling? So sa isang workroom, ano na yung height from the floor to the ceiling? According to the standard. So ito yung provision. So workrooms shall be at least 2.7 meters in height. Okay, so ito pinapakita ko yung provision. But then in the board exam, it's better talaga if memorize natin tong mga provision because hindi natin alam if ibibigay ba tong mga provision. So I suggest dito sa COSH, try to imagine it. So try to imagine a workroom. So sa workroom daw, yung standard is at least 2.7 meters in height. Okay? So try to visualize itong mga provisions to better memorize it. Okay? So 2.7 yung answer. Number 26, where the rooms are air conditioned and the process allows free movement, existing heights of not less than how many meters may be allowed? So ito naman may air condition. So kapag may air condition, tapos free movement, heights of not less than 2.4 meters may be allowed. So kanina 2.7 kapag normal workroom, pero kapag air condition tapos may free movement, it's 2.4 meters. Okay? So try to imagine it para mas ma-memorize nyo. 2.4. Number 27, the maximum number of persons employed in a workroom area shall not exceed 1 person per how many cubic meters? So let's go to the provision. The maximum number of persons employed in a workroom area shall not exceed 1 person per 11.5 cubic meters. Okay, so for a space of 11.5 cubic meters, parang it's 1 person is to 11.5 cubic meters. Okay? So, for 1 person, 11.5 cubic meters. Next, ito, what is the maximum number of persons allowed to work in a 4.6 meter by 7.5 meter workroom with a 4 meter clear height? So, ma-apply natin yung provision kanina from question number 27. Pero, take note, but heights exceeding 3 meters shall not be included. Okay? So, calculate natin yung space, length times width times height. Pero sa calculation natin, hanggang 3 meters lang. Yung given kasi is 4 meters. But then sabi ng provision, but heights exceeding 3 meters shall not be included. Okay, so we use 3 meters for the calculation. So ito given, 7.5 by 4.6. Tapos instead of 4, we use 3 meters. So we get an equal of 103.5 cubic meters. And then to get the number of persons allowed for this respective workspace, 103.5, we divide it by 11.5. So ito, galing sa provision, 1 person is to 11.5 cubic meters. So that's why we divide it by 11.5 cubic meters, we get 9 persons. Okay, so the answer is 9. So number 29, the minimum width of passageways between machinery or equipment. So yung passageway in between one machinery and another machinery or equipment. So ano yung minimum width? So from the provision, passageways between machinery or equipment shall not be less than 60 centimeters. Okay, so from the problem, ang hinahanap is in meters dapat yung unit. So 60 cm is equivalent to 0.6 meter. Okay, number 30. According to the OSH standard, standard railings shall be at least how many meters from the floor level to the upper surface of the top rail? Okay, so from the floor level to the upper surface of the top rail, ilang meters? So this is the provision. Standard railings, so railing, yung hawakan, shall be at least 1 meter from the floor level to the upper surface of the top rail. Okay, so the answer is 1 meter. Okay, so we're halfway through the lecture. Kasi 60 items to. Okay, so let's proceed to number 31. What is the maximum spacing of post in a standard railing? Maximum spacing of post. So from the provision, standard railings shall have posts not more than 2 meters apart. Okay, so yung posts should not be more than 2 meters apart. The answer is 2 meters. 32. For pipe railings, the top rails and posts of metal pipe should be at least how many millimeters in diameter? So, yung clue word natin is diameter. So, hanapin natin sa provision. Ito, mahaba yung provision, but yung hinahanap is diameter. So, for pipe railings, top rails, and posts of metal pipes of at least 30 mm diameter. Okay, at least 30 mm. So, the answer is 30 mm. Number 33. All stairs, platforms, and landings shall be of sufficient strength to sustain safely a live load of not less than 490 kilogram per meter squared with what factor of safety? So from the provision, sustain safely a live load of not less than 490 kg per meter squared with a factor safety of 4. Okay, remember factor safety of 4. Number 34. According to OSH standards, this shall be the minimum width of stairs, including handrails. So ito, including handrails. So from the provision, stairs giving access to oiling platforms shall not be less than 1.1 meters in width, clear of all obstructions except handrails. Okay, so 1.1. The answer is 1.1 yung minimum width of stairs, including handrails. Ito naman sa 35, minimum width of stairs without the handrails. So from the provision, it's the same provision. So shall in no case be less than 90 cm without the handrails. Okay? So kapag may handrails, 1.1 meters. Pero kapag without the handrails, 90 cm. Okay? So 0.9 meters. Number 36. Which of the following stairway slope, horizontal is to vertical, fits the criteria defined in the OSH standards for stair pitch? Okay? So let's check the provision sa pitch. Except for service stairs, the pitch of stairways be between 30 degrees to 38 degrees from the horizontal but not be less than 20 degrees or more than 45 degrees. So again, take note, 30 to 38 from the horizontal. Tapos not less than 20 or more than 45 degrees. Okay, so going back to the problem, ito, paano to? Since naka-slope, yung provision is naka-degrees. So we convert them into degrees. Paano naman? So we draw a triangle. So vertical is to horizontal. Tapos hinahanap natin is itong degree na to, di ba? So we use the inverse tangent function para makuha natin yung degrees dito. Okay? So opposite over adjacent. Okay? So ito, obviously, it's 45 degrees. So dito, paano natin makuha yung 33 degrees? Tan inverse 1 over 1.5 is 33 degrees. Ito naman, tangent inverse of 1 over 2 is 26 degrees. Tapos ito, tangent inverse of 1 over 2.5 is 21 degrees. So from the provision, from 30 degrees daw to 38 degrees. So letter B lang yung pasok, 33 degrees. Number 37, which of the following pitch qualifies for ramp installation? So ramp installation naman. Where the pitch is less than 20 degrees, a ramp shall be installed. So kapag less than 20 degrees. So from the choices, ito lang letter C, yung less than 20 degrees. Okay? Number 38, what is the maximum clear height between stairway landings? So sa stairway, yung mas malaking space ng stairway, that is the landing. So ano daw yung maximum clear height between stairway landings? So from the provision, no stairway shall have a height of more than 3.6 meters between landings. Okay? So 3.6 meters between landings. The answer is 3.6 meters. Number 39. According to OSH standard, headroom shall be provided at all points in the stairwell. What is the minimum vertical clearance? So ano daw yung vertical clearance from the top of the thread? Yung thread is yung tinatapakan mo sa stairs. Yung horizontal na tinatapakan mo, that is a thread. So ano yung minimum vertical clearance from the top of the thread in line with the face of the riser? So from the provision, the vertical clearance shall not be less than 2 meters from the top of the thread. Okay? So 2 meters daw. The answer is 2 meters. Number 40, what is the minimum dimension of threads, exclusive of nosing and projections? So yung thread again is yung tinatapakan. Ano daw yung minimum dimension? So from the provision, except for the service stairs, threads shall not be less than 25 centimeters. Okay? 25 centimeters kapag sa threads. 25 cm. Number 41. The riser should have a maximum height of how many meters? So yung riser is, di ba, yung stairs. Yung tinatapakan mo, which is the horizontal, tapos may vertical, di ba? May vertical. So itong vertical, what is the maximum height para hindi mahirap yung pag-step mo sa stairs, di ba? So from the provision, riser shall not be more than 20 cm, okay? Not more than 20 cm. So for the risers, should not be more than 20 cm. Number 42, what is the maximum pitch or slope for a fixed ladder? So from the provision, no fixed ladders be installed with a pitch over 90 degrees. So take note sa mga ganito kasi lumalabas talaga sa board exam na ganito pagkasulat. 900 yung nakasulat pero ang ibig sabihin yan is 90 degrees. So yung last zero is actually degrees. So the answer is 90 degrees. Number 43. For a fixed ladder used to ascend height of more than 20 meters, at what height should landing be provided? So yung fixed ladder is, imagine nyo yung isang building. Tapos sa labas ng building, may parang ladder. May ladder na naka-attach sa side. So that is a fixed ladder. So dapat may landing yung mga fixed ladder. Kasi for example, if the building is very tall, tapos mag-aakyat ka sa ladder, di ba ang hirap if super tall ng building tapos walang landing, so hindi ka makapahinga. So mahirap yan. So from the provision, ang nakasulat is, fixed ladders used to ascend heights exceeding 9 meters shall be provided with landing platform for each 6 meters or fraction thereof. So ito sa problem natin is a height of more than 20 meters. So dapat may landing tayo sa after 6 meters, and then sa 12, and then sa 18, and then lastly sa 20 na, yung final. Diba? So every 6 meters dapat may landing. Number 44. In excavation safety, adequate shoring and timbering to prevent collapse shall be provided for excavation of depth more than how many meters? So how deep dapat yung excavation para kailangan na nating magamit ng shoring and timbering? So from the provision, the walls of every excavation over 1 meter deep shall be supported by adequate shoring and timbering. So over 1 meter deep lang, dapat may shoring and timbering na tayo. Okay, so the answer is 1 meter. Number 45, adequate shoring and timbering to prevent collapse shall be provided for excavation depth of over 1 meter except, so ito from the provision, except, so shall not apply to an excavation in which a worker is not required to enter for any purposes, cut in solid rock, the walls are sloped to 45-degree angle from the vertical or cut to the angle of repose, in which a worker is engaged in timbering or other work for the purpose of compliance with this rule if precautions are taken to ensure his safety. Okay, so going back to the problem, except ano? Ito, cut in solid rock, check. Tapos, workers are not required to enter, check. All excavation with walls sloped to 45 degrees or at angle of repose, check. So the answer is all of the above. 46. At what excavation depth should the services of a structural engineer for the design of the excavation be required? So kailan natin kailangan kumuha ng structural engineer for an excavation? So from the provision, kapag over 6.6 meters deep na, kailangan na natin magpatulong sa structural engineer. Okay? So kapag over 6.6 meters deep, we need a structural engineer for our excavation. Number 47, tools or materials shall be kept a minimum of how many meters away from the edge of the excavation? So imagine, may excavation tayo. Tapos, how many meters away from the edge daw, at how many meters away from the edge tayo maglalagay ng mga tools or materials? So from the provision, tools or materials shall be kept a minimum of 1 meter away from the edge of the excavation to prevent their being knocked down into the excavation. Okay? So minimum of 1 meter away from the edge. Number 48. At what minimum distance from a 9 meter deep excavation should a vehicle or other machinery be driven, operated, or located? So kanina, tools and materials. Ngayon naman yung mga vehicles and machinery. So how many meters away from the excavation? So from the provision, no vehicle or other machinery shall be driven, operated, or located near the edge of an excavation at least a distance 1/3 of its depth. Okay, 1/3 of the depth. So from the problem, 9 meters deep yung excavation natin. So 1/3 of 9 is 3 meters. So dapat, if ito yung edge, 3 meters away pa, tsaka ka na maglagay ng mga vehicles or machinery. Number 49, open excavation of over 1 meter deep shall be provided with what in case of flooding or collapse of the excavation work? Is it drain, ventilation, water supply, ingress and egress? Okay, so let's check the provision. Every excavation over 1 meter deep shall be provided with means of access and escape. Okay, in case of flooding or collapse of the excavation work. So access and escape. So in other words, this is the ingress and egress. Okay, number 50. How many ladders shall be provided for a 60-meter length excavation as means of access and or exit? Okay, so let's check the provision. Every excavation shall have at least one ladder in every 16.6 meter length of excavation. Okay, so one ladder for every 16.6 meter of length of excavation. So sa problem natin kanina, we have 60 meters length of excavation. So 60, we divided it by 16.6 from the provision. So we get 3.6. Tapos you round up, so we get 4 ladders. So we need 4 ladders for the 60-meter length of excavation from the problem. Okay, so 4 ladders. Number 51. The ladder provided as ingress or egress in an excavation shall extend at least how many meters above the top of the excavation? Okay, so for example, ito yung excavation natin, yung ground of excavation. Tapos may ladder tayo dito sa side. So ano daw tong, how many meters daw tong extra ng ladder para to provide a firm handhold when stepping on or off the ladder? So from the provision, we shall extend at least 0.83 meters above the top of the excavation to provide a firm handhold when stepping on or off the ladder. Okay, so we extend 0.83 meters above the excavation. Number 52. Timber or bamboo scaffoldings shall be limited to a height of how many meters from the ground or base? So itong timber and bamboo scaffoldings hindi masyadong ginagamit sa Philippines. But let's check that we still need to learn the provision. So for timber and bamboo scaffolds, it is limited to a height of 20 meters lang. Kapag more than 20 meters na, we use the structural metals. Okay? So for timber and bamboo, only up to 20 meters. Number 53. In the construction of timber scaffolds, the size of the standard shall not be less than 8.9 cm, okay, in diameter or its equivalent, and when it is necessary to extend a standard. The overlaps shall not be less than how many meters? Okay, so the overlaps shall not be less than how many meters? So from the provision, overlaps shall not be less than 60 cm. Okay, remember that. Overlaps shall not be less than 60 cm. Okay, 0.6 meters equivalent. Number 54. In scaffolds platform for painters, decorators, and similar types of worker, what is the minimum width of the platform? So para sa mga painter, decorator, ano da yung minimum width of the platform na tinatapakan nila? So from the provision, so it's not, so from the problem, not more than 2 meters above the ground yun. Tapos for painters, decorators, and similar types of workers, we need 30 cm width of the platform, okay? So the answer is 30 cm. Next question naman, kapag more than 2 meters above the ground or floor, ano yung minimum platform width? So kanina, nandito tayo sa not more than 2 meters. But for this problem, more than 2 meters above the ground na. So for men, tools, and materials, we need 1 meter width ng platform, okay? So the answer is 1 meter. Last 5 questions. Fall protection equipment shall be required when working at what minimum height? So fall protection equipment, yung mga guardrails, yung mga protective barriers. So at what minimum height daw kailangan natin silang gamitin? So from the provision, we need to use fall protection equipment kapag we are working in a height of 2 meters and above, okay? 2 meters and above, we need a fall protection equipment. Dito naman, what height shall workers be required to use fall arrest equipment? So fall arrest equipment, yung mga net, mesh, and body harness. So kailan natin sila kailangan gamitin? So from the provision, for work height of 10 meters, workers are required to use fall arrest equipment, okay? So kapag more than 10 meters, we need the fall arrest equipment. Number 58. In a pitch of more than 45 degrees, what should be provided instead of stairs? Okay? Pitch more than 45 degrees. So kapag more than 45 degrees, fixed ladder shall be provided. Okay? So the answer is fixed ladder. Number 59, which of the following are not included in HIRAC process? Again, HIRAC is hazard identification, risk assessment, and control. So ito, first, classify work activities. Check. We do that in the HIRAC process. Identify hazard. From the name itself, hazard identification. Check. We do that. Conduct risk assessment. Risk assessment. Yes. Check. Decide if risk is tolerable and apply control measures. Control. So HIRAC control. Check. So meaning the answer is none of the above. Lahat included. Okay? So lahat ng to is included in the HIRAC process. And last question, which of the process includes calculation of likelihood of occurrence and severity of the hazard? Okay? So kapag severity of the hazard, you do that when you conduct risk assessment. Okay? Severity of the hazard when we conduct risk assessment. So the answer is C, number 3. Okay, so those are the 60 item questions of our first set of KOSH. So see you in our next set of KOSH where we have another several items to study on. See you in the next KOSH set.